Welcome to In the Arena. I'm your host, Representative Mindy McAlindon. Today's episode is about one of the most exciting cities in America, Bentonville, Arkansas. Bentonville was put on the map because Sam Walton planted Walmart here and grew it to literally the number one company in America, in the country, and the world even. But Bentonville, Arkansas is on the national stage because of the people and the culture that built this community. It is a community that is intentionally remembering its roots while we continue to grow and expand. Leading the city through this era of expansion is our guest today. It is Mayor Stephanie-Orman. Mayor, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you here, but I'd like to start at the beginning. You've been involved with Northwest Arkansas for quite a while, so let's talk about what led you to Northwest Arkansas and kind of where your story began.
Well, we were actually, I would say we were a vendor family. My husband works in the vendor world, and we actually wanted to get to Bentonville. We wanted to get to an area that he thought he could grow with his job, with his CPG job. And so I thought my job, I was in marketing and advertising, and I felt like I could probably have that career anywhere. And so we were very intentional about trying to get to Bentonville, because with a corporate career, moving every 2 years wasn't something that we wanted to do as we started a family. So I always say we were actually a vendor family that wanted to get to Bentonville because we thought that we could grow our careers here and wanted to stay in Bentonville.
Oh, I think that is great. And I think that's actually a story that we hear a lot from vendor families. I know when my husband and I worked at Procter & Gamble, people would go to Bentonville and we'd be like, you're going to Arkansas, and then they'd never come back. And the company's like, what is going on? And every person who went was like, you got to go to Bentonville. It's amazing. So let's talk about your political side. You and I have served together in the political arena, but when we first met, you were on city council. So talk about city council. Was that your first foray into public service?
It really was. I mean, I've always been involved with the community, but I personally just really love local government. I love working on those local issues. And so for me, that's really where my passion lies, is on the daily basis, working with the community on a local level.
That is great. And before we talk about your mayor responsibilities and kind of what that all entails, just tell me what it's like from when you first moved here, 25 years ago, maybe? Is that right?
A little under, yeah.
So when you first moved here to Bentonville now, what are the major differences that you see?
There's a lot of difference, but that core of community and people wanting to help each other and see businesses grow and people be successful, that spirit's always been here. And so I think that's one of the things that really drew us to this area and why we love it so much.
And it's one of the things that makes Bentonville so unique, because I agree with you. I think it is that spirit of community, that spirit of just knowing who we are and not leaving that is one of the things that really, I think, attracts a lot of people to Bentonville. You don't see that much anymore. So I think it harkens back to the old times, if you will. So let's talk about being a mayor. A lot of people may not know exactly what the responsibilities are for someone who serves as mayor. So can you kind of just top line those for us?
Sure. So there's different forms of government. We're a strong mayoral form here in Bentonville. And so as mayor, you operate as kind of the CEO. But your main responsibility is about a balanced budget that we have to pass every year. And so, but on a daily basis, I have about 12 different department heads that report to me. And so on a monthly basis, I'm meeting with them. They all have their individual goals within the departments, but ultimately that all rolls up into hopefully running a city, and also running a city that is growing very fast.
It is. And I've been to your office. I've seen there's a lot of people moving fast when you go visit City Hall. So what do you think is one of the most surprising things that lands on the mayor's desk that people may not know the mayor actually takes care of this?
Well, I will say, so when I came into office, I set up the 311 program. So I actually get notifications on every 311 that comes through. I can't say that I'm personally taking care of each one of them, but I do see them. So I feel like I have a pretty good pulse on about 22 of the major concerns. And that's how 311 is set up.
Define 311 for us.
So if you have a concern that falls into those categories, so whether it's a pothole or a street or a light repair, you can go into the system. You can log it for us. You can take a picture of it and show us to it, which is very helpful. So we can actually see the issue as we try to prioritize and get it to it. But it immediately goes to the department that handles that issue. And then their responsibility is to respond back to the resident to give them some understanding of a timeline and when we can get it fixed. Or if it's in some instances, it may be part of a larger bond project or something that's getting fixed, but it's going to be, it's going to take some time.
It's going to take a while.
Larger bond project. So, but I also use that system. So as we started to see different concerns with a growing city, we have a log, we have data now. Where do we have an issue occurring? And now we have that data we can go back to in 311 and really kind of see maybe hotspot areas in the city that we need to think about. Like how do we develop here better? What do we do to make sure that this concern doesn't continue to appear here?
It's a great way to keep a pulse of what's going on and stay ahead of things. You hate to get behind on something because then it becomes an actual big issue, and nobody wants that, especially when you're sitting in public office. That is not what you want. So I applaud you for doing that. That's a great system, actually. And I've talked to many constituents who have actually used that system to kind of report what's going on, and which I love.
And the system, that's why we try to get everybody to put their concern into it, if it falls within those categories that are in it. It also allows us a very fair way to prioritize, right? And so I think that's something else that the system really does for us too. It's not just whose number do you know to call. And have the external, we ask you to put in the system. So when we look at that, we're really trying to analyze it in a fair manner of how to prioritize the work.
Yeah, that's good. So Bentonville has really become a magnet for new residents, new businesses from across the country. But maintaining and improving daily life has really been a focus of your administration. Your people first approach, like, how do you maintain that? And what are your top focus areas to make sure that we're supporting growth, but that we're putting the people first?
Sure. So, our main initiative in the city is high quality of life. And so that involves a lot of different things. But when you put the people first and you listen to them, I always say you are our eyes and ears out there, just like 311 operates. Like I don't have a person on every street out there to see everything. So we rely a lot on the public to talk to us and tell us. And then, my approach is that if you talk to me about I'm usually going to bring you in and say, let's have a conversation. Like, how do we come together to find the best resolution? And sometimes it's things that the city can just immediately go out and fix. A lot of times it's a situation where we've got to figure out how to work together to get the solution. And so that's just kind of the approach that I try to take with everything. As the city grows, it's harder and harder to have every individual that contacts me come in and have a conversation immediately on things. So that's the challenging part of it, because I really am a people person, and I really do. Even if I think I'm going into a conversation where we're probably not going to see this exactly the same. I like working with people and listening and trying to come to a solution. Like I get satisfaction out of that when we can work together. So it's something that I thrive on. But again, as the city grows, it's a little harder to do that. What I love about this city, though, is 99% of the time when I'm able to bring the person in and talk through it, they understand, they see the obstacles that maybe they hadn't thought about, and they want to work with us towards a solution. And I think that's again, going back to some of the community spirit you see it in Bentonville, and why we are able to have a high quality of life here.
And that is a good approach. And I do think you have and I know you know better than I do, but I think you have this conflicting opinions of, I love Bentonville the way it is. I don't want it to grow anymore. I love Bentonville the way it was. It's already grown too much. And then Bentonville's amazing. Let's keep it going. Right. So I think you have a lot of opinions, and balancing those has to be very, very trying as a mayor. And I think that your approach of really listening to people has what has served you well as mayor and allowed you to continue to grow the way that we have. So let's talk about infrastructure. I think that, I don't know if that's top of the 311 list, but I'm going to say it's probably up there if I had to guess. So what do you think Bentonville needs most right now in order to stay either in sync or ahead of the expansion that we're seeing and the growth that we're seeing?
So I do think that planning is a big aspect. And to do that, you have to put in the time to have the data and the research to be able to plan from too. So I do think in this area we're fortunate with the Northwest Arkansas Council and regional planning and some other entities that we're able to kind of come together with data and then be able to bring that into. One of the things we've been going through is updating our future land use map and trying to update that and build out in a way that we can build our utilities out in conjunction with that. As you know, utilities are a big topic, especially in growing cities. But honestly, if you just look at the nationwide conversation, utilities, cost of utilities, it's a big conversation. But the other aspect that we can't build more housing, more affordable housing, anything. We can't build more schools or anything if you don't have the infrastructure in the ground to support that, right?
Yeah.
In particular, water and sewer infrastructure, because it's pipes in the ground that electric's a little bit easier if it's overhead. Although we also want most of our electric in the ground now too, right, underground. Right. But if you're not planning for that and you're digging and putting in pipes through people's property, like it's a really challenging process, and it has to be planned. And I do think planned growth is how you are able to grow well. And so that's our goal. Like nobody's perfect in this arena. I said, give me a city that has grown and not had any challenges with infrastructure, and I have yet to have that come across the table. But we do look at other cities. We try to see. And we reach out and have conversations like where we've seen we think somebody do something really well, like how did you do that? And then where we see maybe they grew in areas that haven't went so well, like what do we want to try to avoid there? And that's something we're trying to do intentionally. We're fortunate in this area that we do have families and individuals that want to invest in this area, that want to see high quality of life. And so we try to have those relationships and be able to do it together. I don't think, I'm obviously a local government person, but I love government. You have to have government for the country, and otherwise you have chaos, in my opinion. But we're not the solution to everything. We really do need partners in a lot of this to figure it out and make it run as smoothly as we can and deliver high quality of life. And so I'm very passionate about having those relationships and again, working together.
Yeah. And those relationships are important because really, I kind of see the role of government to facilitate the ability of people to reach their potential, try to grow their businesses, to, more people to move here, but it's not your job to make that happen, right? It's your job to put those pieces in place. And so I think that's where the partners really become very valuable. So
I see our job at a local level as really focusing on those core items that make those things happen, and infrastructure at the very base level. That's your foundation. And so when we talk about water and sewer and electric and roads, like those are things. And if you look at the spending over the years as the U.S. has evolved, the federal spending has went down in those core areas, and cities are having to pick that up. So that is a big conversation with us. How do we do that? How do we manage the funds well? And how do we make sure we can accommodate for the growth? We're also fortunate here. We have a good economy. We have jobs. And so people do want to move here.
Yeah.
The other part of that is when people move here, you're going to have more traffic. You're going to have to figure out you're going to have more needs for water and sewer and electric, right? So.
No, it is. Yeah. I mean, it's two sides of the same coin for sure. All right. So let's talk the hot topic of the day, which is sewer. Not a sexy topic, as we all know, but it is necessary. As you just said, it's one of those things nobody thinks about it until this toilet doesn't flush or we can't build anymore or whatever those issues are. So it's important to talk about. It's been a topic for a couple years It was a critical part of the last campaign when you ran for reelection and having those conversations. And I think for a lot of people, that might have been the first time that they'd really thought about the importance of sewer in the city. But I think it was great that was brought to light, because you really need to have people behind you as you do what you want to do. So let's talk about first why this sewer capacity has become such a defining issue for the city, or a challenge for the city right now. And then we'll go from there.
Well, I would say number one, it's not just Bentonville.
It's not just Bentonville. Yeah,
it is across really Northwest Arkansas, but any of the growing
it's
cities
really across the state. I mean, we have a lot of infrastructure sewer issues, even down in the Delta. Totally different issues, but we have a lot of issues. But let's focus just on Bentonville, for example. Let's talk about that.
Well, and that's when we went through COVID, and the state actually did a survey on water or sewer across the state. I think it was 4.5 billion that came back in needs, and now I'm told that based on inflation of things that the number may have doubled, right? So it's been a conversation for a long time. I have been trying to have that conversation since that study came back, but Bentonville in particular is growing, so we were really trying to have that conversation and understand it. And so we've been fortunate. About 4 years ago, we had the opportunity to partner on some research, some studies, and have our system analyzed. And so I do feel like we've done the work to really know what we need to have and how our system needs to be built out. I hope we're putting together a model here that maybe can be used in other areas. We've got some work to get done on the financing piece of it, but we're trying to bring partners together and do what we think is the most fiscally responsible thing possible, and still allow the city to grow, and also for the ratepayers not to have to be on the hook for all of that growth. And so it involves a development fee that we're trying to move through. We've been involved with third-party lawyers and third-party rate analysis to try to come to what is a fair amount that this looks at. The city had, impact fees on water and sewer. They got rid of them around 2009, and they never re-implemented them. Back then, they were coming out of, what happened in 2008. And so was an impact fee. Did it, what the decisions made back then? I would say we can't look backwards, and we can always Monday morning quarterback, right? And say, if we would have known, if you had the crystal ball.
Right.
I think what we have to do, and what I really hope the area and leaders do, is we have to look at what's in front of us. Like what do we have in front of us right now, and how do we lead and figure it out with what we have in front of us? We can, if we spend all our time going back in time, we're not going to get anywhere. So that's really what we've tried to do. So we've been fortunate enough to be able to do some of the research, have the surveys, really analyze our system. Also, we've worked hard to update our land use plan. And so that we have those population projections. We try to put them into our land use and build out, and also listen to the public about how do they want the city to build out. They don't necessarily want 26-story buildings, right? And we've listened to that with our land use. And so we're trying to, there's a lot of pieces to the pie. It's complicated. But we feel like we're in a good place to move something forward, and we think it's the best option for the city. So
let's talk in the middle. Yeah, let's talk about that. So you have been, I would say, very proactive with an ongoing long-range plan. You and your team have been looking at this and trying to say, where do we go? And for people who may not live in Bentonville or may not be aware, you have put out several surveys over the last few years of, what do you think of this type of home? What do you think of this type of arrangement? What do you see this being like? What about the bike trails? What about public space, common space? And so you really have asked for that public input multiple times, which is very proactive, and it's not reactive. And I think we see a lot of reactive plans that aren't always the best, but we're just putting the Band-Aids on because we want to get down the road, right? So let's talk about the plan. You have a significant plan to increase sewer capacity. And I think you have just launched it. Did you make an announcement yesterday, I believe, about that?
Well, we've done a meeting with City Council. We still have to get them through and move it. We've been working with a a private entity to try to be able to have the funding to be able to really do what needs to be done in the system. And so that's what we're trying to bring forward. It's again, we've had a lot of lawyers looking at it. We've had a lot of third-party analysis trying to make sure what is a reasonable development fee to accomplish what needs to happen in the system. I feel very good about what all we've done to get to where we are at, and I feel like the people we've been working with are very competent and they understand the industry, and we're trying to come up with the fairest option we can possibly find out there. And so I feel good about it. We still have to move it through council and implement it, and then ultimately you got to get the projects done. But again, it's been a long road of the research and getting the data to where we're at, and I feel good about it.
Do you have a timeline on when you think we'll be kind of over the hump on sewer concerns?
Council's been aware we've been working on this. We did have a meeting yesterday to sort of give the final information and just for City Council, they've known what we've been working on for a while, but to really put all the information and get our experts. So we have a rate analysis expert and different things, and get them all in the same meeting, giving all the information, because when you do these calculations, to do them in a fair way, there's a lot of information that has to be taken into consideration, and we want the public to know that we've been working with their credentials, and so it's not just all city staff. Although I will tell you, I encourage the public to come talk to our city staff because they know our system and they're impressive. But we feel good about it. We are going to ask council to vote on it December 22nd. Sorry. Okay. So we oftentimes actually don't do a second city council meeting in December because it will fall right on the week of Christmas, but we are doing it. They decided to do their meeting on Monday, the 22nd. So we are putting it in front of them. It's out to the public. There'll be we'll have to publish in the paper because it's and so make sure the public is aware of everything that we're asking, and we'll provide all the information and answer all the questions we can for the public. But
and they can find links for the agenda and those things on the website as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. All right. And so this is kind of a weird question, but is there any, when it comes to sewer and this infrastructure improvements, can you tell me what success would look like for a resident who never sees the work, right? But we rely on it every day. How do I know it's working? How do I know you've improved anything? I guess is my question. Or I don't.
Yeah. Well, it's again, it's pipes in the ground. So if it's working, hopefully you don't hear anything about it and you don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
Honestly, if our system is working the way it needs. But the sewer system, so in particular, it has to do with the capacity that it can be treated at what we call our wastewater treatment plants, and then the capacity in the lines. And honestly, a lot of that's regulated at the state level.
Usually what you did there. Yeah.
But we want to be good stewards of the infrastructure. And so there's requirements there that have to be put in place. You can't just build and not have the capacity.
Okay. Well, we're happy to work with you at the state level, whatever you need. Well, okay. So I thank you. I look forward to hearing more about the plan once it's approved, and you can tell us more about it. I again applaud you for just trying to be proactive in what you're doing and trying to make sure that we are growing Bentonville in a way that is responsible and that we can accommodate. So let me wrap it up with a couple of things. One, we can't talk Bentonville without talking biking, right? So let's just briefly talk about how has biking influenced the city's story and reputation with you as a mayor? How has that happened? Do you feel it?
Oh, yes. I mean, it's funny because now you go, and I'm in Little Rock or wherever, obviously people know Bentonville as the mountain biking capital of the world, but, I meet people all the time just walking to the square that are from all over, countries over, and they are here because of Bentonville and biking a lot of times, right? So it's definitely influencing our story. What I hope people hear from me as mayor, I'm not out on the mountain biking trails every day, but I really have tried to embrace. If in downtown, if I can bike somewhere, I think it's an active lifestyle. I think we're trying to encourage it. I always tell people, we do need the home office if to have a certain percentage biking in, because if I've got so many thousand cars coming in at the same time there, like that does create some traffic challenges for us. So like there's some realistic things that problems that biking can help solve for the city. And so we hope that we're working together to create an environment. We're also trying to put the infrastructure in place, especially on all of the new projects. Like we have a lot of old infrastructure, doesn't have all the, I'd love to have a side path on every, just to protect it from a safety standpoint, because that's what I'm comfortable riding on. And so we're trying to do as much infrastructure as we feasibly can with the funding and resources that we have to be able to put safe infrastructure in place so that people can feel comfortable if they decide to jump on a bike. And, it takes everybody working together. So if you're a car driver or you're a bike rider, you have to understand the laws and make sure that we're driving and paying attention to everybody and again, sharing the road sometimes means, just working together. So it's a conversation, but this community is a collaborative community. And I think we do desire ultimately, whether it's living next door to somebody or if it's driving or biking on a road next to each other, that we want to protect each other and be safe on there. And that's the goal.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to wrap up with part of it. It is a big part of it. And I think it will continue to be part of Bentonville's legacy. I mean, I just think it is now embedded in the culture of who we are without question. Okay, I'm going to wrap up with a fun question. So you can have your pick. This is Mayor's choice. Either share with me like your favorite memory serving as mayor so far, or the accomplishment that you are most proud of as you look at your time in office. Either one.
I was thinking about that. It's really hard. I will say our 8th Street project, because I know how long ago it started. In 2003 was some of the first conversations. And to be able to put that project, and also to be understand the project now, there's still some tweaks on how traffic flows and bikes flow on that we want to recognize and figure out how even though I'm very proud of the project and getting it done, there's still some things that we need to humble ourselves and say, hey, maybe there's a few things in here we can tweak. And so I'm really proud of that project. I think from just a core transportation infrastructure piece, that is something that's been a long time in the works, and we've got it done. And if you now drive 8th Street and you go through the new home office, I mean, it is like a city within a city, right?
It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Accomplished in the last few years. So
yeah, that's a great one. It is. Yes, home office is really, really cool to be in there. Okay, well, Mayor, thank you so much for your service. Thank you for your service to Bentonville, to our community, and thank you for taking time to just give us a little behind-the-scenes look at what it means to manage a city that is growing at such a fast pace. So thank you so much. I look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our show today with Mayor Stephanie-Orman. She is a longtime Bentonville resident who came here and started serving on city council and then really just jumped in as mayor and has grown this city tremendously. She talked a lot about what it was like just to be mayor, what those responsibilities are, taking care of the day-to-day things and being the CEO of the city. She also talked a lot about growth and what that looks like to try and manage growth where you're managing a lot of different expectations of people who've lived here a long time and may not be as excited about the growth, and all the new people coming here who are very excited about what the city has to offer and how you put people first, while improving daily lives through the process. Taking care of roads, taking care of sewer. Sewer is a big issue across the state, making sure that we are able to handle the amount of people that we have coming in. And it sounds like she's really done some long-term proactive planning to make sure that that is happening. And then finally, of course, I always have to mention Bentonville is the mountain biking capital of the world. If you haven't been to Bentonville, you've got to come and ride the trails because they are amazing. And so with that, I will say thank you again for watching. I look forward to seeing you next week in the arena.